ever have enough time to
Carving
play.
has been done. Not exactly Michelangelo, but I think it's going to work. Definitely looks a lot more like topography than what it was before. I figure the next thing I'll do is probably put plaster cloth on top of it. I'm not sure. I'm going to do a little research before I go forward with that, but that kind of seems like that might be the thing to do. It's either that or paint right over the top of it. I do want to paint most of it before I begin the track work. I don't know, I might not. I'm just going to have to see. But you know, I figure in these areas in here, I'll put in some rock castings. I may even cut some of that big flat spot out there, maybe 3/4 of it or something like that, and put large rock castings in there. As long as it doesn't protrude past my fascia, I think that'll give another little scenic scene there that'll look pretty good. And it turned out fairly well with the spray foam. Now, one thing that did occur is there was lots of places where it wasn't actually cured yet. Kind of hard to see, but I went to carving on it and got in the middle of it and it was still gooey. In fact, I think there's a few places that I still want to continue doing some carving, but I'm going to wait for it to dry completely before I do any more. But all in all, I think it's going to work pretty good. Went ahead and went with Sculpt-A-Mold. I didn't do everything with it, of course. And I'll see if we can. I did some gouging in the foam here to give some depth to the scene, and I went ahead and put some Sculpt-A-Mold in there. And over here, I went ahead and I've started doing a little painting. I'm just going to put down a base coat of, I think that's called Sierra Desert or something like that. It's just some cheap stuff that I picked up at Walmart. But it's coming along. I'll tell you, if I started to drill the holes in the Homosote roadbed there, and I started to do one. I think I did get one put in, but the drill bit really tears that Homosote up. So I think I'm going to go ahead and paint over the top of it, and then hopefully it will drill a little bit better, because it really wants to rip all that is like paper mache, and so that the drill bit doesn't go through very good. I've got a pilot hole drilled through all of them so I can find it after I paint it, and I still might be able to see that green through the paint anyway, but I didn't like the way that was going to drill. But I'm pretty happy with it so far. Hopefully before the end of the weekend I'll actually get some track laid. Well, I've finally gotten started on some track work. But before I get too in depth on that, I thought I would point out a few things and kind of go back to my overall plan here. And I've mentioned that as you build a model railroad, things kind of go in stages or phases. We tend to think in long terms or large terms of bench work, sub-road bed, road bed, track work, scenery, large things like that. As you go along, you find out that there's lots of little bitty steps between point A and point C and so on and so forth. And we're always eager to move to the next big step, especially me. You know, if you haven't got your track laid yet, that's kind of one of those things where you're pushing forward to actually get to see your trains run. It's understandable. I imagine all of us are that way. But I thought I would back up and point out a few things, a few mistakes, just to be purely transparent here. A few things that I goofed up on, that if you're thinking about starting a model railroad, that maybe you won't go down the same road I did. So originally, when I had planned on putting my end cap here, I sized that all up and had it all figured out, and at some point I realized that I needed to trim off about 1/8 of an inch off of this wood here, both the wood and the foam. I didn't do that. I completely forgot that I needed to do that, and I didn't do it. So now when I put my end cap on here, it's not at a 90-degree angle, and it's leaning out away from the layout a little bit. I think I can work around that and maybe make it to where it'll work. But again, that's what happens when you don't write things down and you try and move too quickly to the next step. Another thing that I failed to do is the foam was supposed to be butted up against the fascia. And I had spacers. I had even cut the spacers and put them in here so that my foam would be exactly where I wanted it, so that when I took the backdrop off, you know, there would be the right amount of space between the backdrop and the foam to allow for the hard wood that's going to be there. I forgot to do that, so that's butted up against there, so I'm going to have to work around that somehow. Probably not that huge of a deal, but just something to point out. And another thing, again, I deliberately didn't, for a while, I didn't glue down my foam because I was taking it off and on and kind of doing some things different with the wood from here and there, and then I got so eager to work on my landforms here with the foam and the liquid foam and all that, that I completely forgot that once I got the foam on the wood to glue it down. So I am not glued down almost anywhere here, which I think I'll be able to work around that too, because some of this foam is going to be cut out and I will be able to get out from underneath it, or get up underneath it and glue it from the other side. But again, you know, these are little things that, and what I would recommend and what I think I will try and do is keep a notepad near me. So when I think of something, oh, I need to do that before I can do this, actually write it down, and then before you begin any one step of construction, refer back to your list and make sure that you've done everything that needed to be done before you go to the next step. So here I am. I've gotten started on actually laying the track. As I mentioned earlier, let's see if I can show it. Here we go. Right there, that's a hole that I drilled through the Homosote roadbed. I think when I do this again, you know, in the future dealing with the Homosote, what I'm going to try is to saturate the area prior to drilling with watered down white glue, and then let that dry, and that might actually firm up the Homosote and make it a little less, I don't know, susceptible to ripping and tearing with the drill bit. But it's going to work the way it is. So I'm going to put the camera down and continue with my track work, and I think if everything goes as planned, I ought to be finished with my track work this weekend. Have a few videos put up on YouTube for you guys. And next week, hopefully, get some wiring done. That's another big step that I'm really looking forward to.
Ever have enough time to play it all?